All right. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Dunn County Executive Committee to order. Call the roll. I look around, everybody's here. That simplifies things. Approval of the minutes. I would need a motion in a second. Supervisor Morehouse moves. Supervisor Vogel seconds. Any speaking to the minutes? Right. Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Motion. Sorry. Any opposed? Motion passes. Public comments. No, I don't think so, unless we got one online or via email. All righty. County manager's report. Chris, over to you.
All right, you had in your packet the draft county board agenda. It's a fairly busy month. Let me find it. We will do, so last year in November, when we approved $3 million of borrowing, that needs to come back for approval of the bond note parameters, it's called. It essentially says sort of what are the limits around what we would borrow in terms of interest rate, et cetera, and then who gets to sign the documents. It's a fairly standard procedure, and it is a simple majority vote through the board, so that will come through. Although I anticipate there'll be some questions and perhaps comment about that. Perhaps. Capital improvement plan approval. We'll discuss that more in depth today. Some budget adjustments, routine budget adjustments, and then the Planning Resources and Development Committee met earlier today, just before this meeting, to look at an MOU, approve an MOU for acquisition of 1.5 miles of the Red Cedar Trail south of the border, Chippewa River Trail south of the border, or south of the connection between the Chippewa River and Red Cedar Trails. And so I'm sure when you get to your committee updates, you'll get more information about that. And then rest of the stuff's fairly routine. Some vacation payout, pay down for our 911 staff. Some reorganization in the IT department. We have been working on laying the groundwork for cleaning up a bunch of just process related things. So you're going to see a policy on policies. Basically what's a policy and who approves them and where do they go and what's the kind of the process to that. So lots of things get called policy that aren't necessarily policy. And on the other hand, some things don't get called policy that probably should be called policy.
I feel like that should have come from the Committee on Committees.
It should have come from the Committee on Committees. We could have the Board of Boards. Couple of rezones. And then and I imagine that there will be some public comment as well in the public comment section on addressing the zoning ordinance amendment for accessory dwelling units.
The opioid settlement, I saw that we've got it here, but we don't have it on the county board agenda.
I'll have to add that. Yep. We added it to the agenda after this part was done. So yes, after today's meeting, then I go back and make sure that they both look the same. So
I was very pleased to see it. Like 3 days ago, I had made a note to myself, we've got to get this on the agenda. And then I got the agenda and I was.
That was thanks to Nick. Yeah, so that's a fairly standard. I'm sure it's a little bit of an ambitious agenda, so wear your astronaut diapers.
Or maybe we could have a couple of, little breaks. Yeah. We can do that.
All right. ERP update. Just want to always make sure that we're keeping this on your radar. The process continues to work well. Our what we call PITs, the groups that are working on individual areas of focus, like procurement and assets and budgeting and accounting, all of those, the PITs are all actively working. And the steering committee meets bi-weekly. And we yeah, I think we're making good progress. We are adjusting the timeline slightly, but not anything super dramatic at this stage. Beata and I were at the Government Finance Officers Association conference this last week, and had an opportunity to talk to a number of ERP vendors, and have some considerations for the steering committee to be discussed again. So just want to sort of keep that on your radar, because we will, probably be moving forward with a recommendation about that later in the year. Our plan at this point in time, just so you have sort of a heads up, it's not etched in stone. Obviously, the board gets to make the final decision, but would be to purchase that system using some of our ARPA interest money that we've accrued over the last few years. Any questions about those things? All right, so you are going to be a bit of the test audience for an exercise that we are going to take all of the standing committees through in June, and then highway and transit in July. So our sort of self-appointed internal budget team is Dan, Dunbar, Beata, Jenna, Andrew, and myself. And we meet regularly and kind of strategize as to how to not only do the best job that we can to bring you the best budget information, but also to figure out like what we might do to fill gaps, etc. So this is my third time through a budget. In year one, I started on 8/1, so we were partway into the year, but last year was relatively straightforward, not too much drama or trauma, I don't think, about that one. Year three faces a few additional challenges and changes, but we're gonna figure it out. We are finishing our ARPA money and our extra COVID monies that have been infused into the budget over the last several years. We are awaiting now our new numbers using the new shared revenue formula. So I anticipate that we'll have, a bit more money, but we won't know until August when that when that number is released by the Department of Revenue. And then the city is closing a tax increment district, number 12. And that money will also be known in August when the DOR numbers are released. And that will be some additional one-time additional money coming in as well. So I believe that it's our job, or my job, but our job, Beata's, mine, probably primarily, to get you what you need in order to make good decisions for the county. And we are constantly kind of refining how to do that. With a new board, and I counted, there are 15 of 29 supervisors who have 2 years or less of experience. So over half of you are going to kind of go through this either the first time or only their second time through. And so we're trying to explore non-threatening ways of providing them with various to explore the strategies, but also to not sort of box people into a corner with what they don't know, and to utilize the voice of the new perspectives, but also the more seasoned perspectives for people who've been on the board for a long time. So this month, we're going to focus on the expense side of the equation, and looking at some direction, we're going to do a little bit of straw polling at the end, and anonymously, to just kind of get an idea about where the board stands on some of these things as we work our way through the various committees. As always, I welcome your input about what works and what doesn't. You, as the executive committee, obviously have probably the most experience, as well as the deepest understanding as the finance piece of this. But you're the first one to go through this, and our plan is to do the rest of them in a month. Dan and I have split them up. So the first thing we're going to do, the first thing that I want to do, and let me share my screen and bring it up, but I did print it for you as well. It's just that it's kind of small. I want to make sure that you understand, or that you've got a good comprehension of what it is that we're asking you to take a look at.
Well, and I will note that this also plays into the ongoing conversation we've been having about with the high board turnover. We really need to do a lot of education for newer board members so that they are familiar enough with the process that they can make judgments that are based in the process. So I've been very much staying looped in on this, but one step back.
Actually, you know what? It's gonna be really little if I bring it up. So I'm just gonna reference it. And this will be a part it'll be difficult. This isn't all gonna come through on the recording because we're gonna actually do some work with it. So I'll do the best that we can to try to get some of it to the recording, but to our audience, I apologize that they probably won't be able to hear every last thing. So today we're gonna look at the expense side. And so starting with the column, that's farthest on the right. That shows you the 2024 funding, the revenue side and where that is. So we put kind of for the sake of consistency, we put the debt and levy on the bottom. That we have to have, that there is, this is how 2024 was funded. There was $5 million, there's $5 million of the budget that is debt service. There is about $2.7 million that is state aid. That's our shared revenue. There's about $4.5 million of sales tax. And then $19.6 million worth of just sort of, I'll just call it general levy, because debt service is levied as well, but you see that number below that. We used $1.4 million of the general fund. And we voted to borrow, or you voted to borrow $3 million. And then we had $400,000 of ARPA. And again, that funded our general operating budget and our capital improvement plan in 2024. So that debt service number at $5 million as a revenue, that really is a levy. I just want that to be clear. So if you added the debt levy and the regular levy, you get to that roughly $25 million, which is our levied amount. So in the next column, then what are our expenses? So we have about $5 million of debt service. We have about $9 million of operating supplies. This is the levy side. We have about $100 million of budget. You're just seeing the things that not that you don't have influence over the rest of them, but the things where the decisions make a difference in what people get taxed. And then there are about $17 million of our salary, almost $18 million of our salary and fringes are in levy, and then $4.8 million of highway projects. So that's 2024. 2025 doesn't look terribly different for several things. So on the funding side, again, we're going to levy $5 million of debt service. That's been a number that's been known kind of going along. We're anticipating some increase of state aid. We don't know how much. We know that we'll have some net new construction. We'll have some additional shared revenue. So we just plugged in a $300,000 number. Or sorry, 300,000. Sorry, the difference, I'm looking at the difference between state aid in 24 and 25, about $300,000 more. Our sales tax revenue continues to grow, just kind of steadily growing. So again, we budgeted $4.5 million of anticipated sales tax revenue in 24 and $4.7 million in 25. I shouldn't say we budgeted because we haven't done a budget at all yet. We're collecting the data, but this is the numbers we're working off of for the sake of this exercise. And then the $20 million of regular levy. And then the last column tucked away in the tall green there is really what we know at this point in time will be some of our expense. So we have that $5 million of debt service. We have the same roughly $9 million of operating supplies. Our operating costs don't tend to change a dramatic amount from year to year outside of highway operation or highway projects. We have budgeted that, you'll see the budget at the same amount of salary and fringe because we built in an extra line, so it's clear that there's a decision to be made about that for additional step or cost of living increases that would cost about, just ballpark, $1 to $1.5 million outside of levy. I mean, of levy or whatever we chose to fund it with. And then the last is we currently have a planned. So Dustin's created a highway, a longer term highway plan, 5-year highway plan, 5, right, Dustin? 5-year highway plan, and to keep us on that 20-year replacement cycle would require about $7 million worth of project money for the coming year. So on just the expense side, there really are only kind of 3 places to tackle it. We can decrease highway projects, that's $7 million. We can decrease or not provide raises or cost of living increases, or we can decrease our operating expenses. And so I'd like to walk through quickly. And again, I think you are more seasoned at this, and so you're going to probably be able to do this faster, but just taking them one at a time, looking at the pros and the cons to each of those decisions. And obviously we haven't attached numbers to them. If you collectively or the board collectively says there's no way that we want to decrease highway funding under any circumstances, then that's sort of a line in the sand for us to plan around. If there's like, nope, no one should have, any raise, then we can plan for that. But this is really just having you have an opportunity, and really for some of the newer members, having them an opportunity to hear from each other and from the more seasoned folks. I know, having been at this for a while, what are some of the considerations that come into play with this? So I'm going to just, for the sake of time, I'm just going to make a halfway point of pros and cons. And we'll tackle them from the highway standpoint. What are the pros and the cons of decreasing highway funding? You can do it on either side and I'll just add it.
Well, the cons would be the roads just won't get done, and we need to get roads done.
So the road
Give me there, yeah.
deteriorate? No, that's not how you spell deteriorate, but please.
Roads.
Close enough. I mean, the big obvious pro is that's where the money is.
What do you mean?
Well, it might have been John Dillinger. Someone said, "Why do you rob banks?" Because that's where the money is. If we're going to reduce someplace, highway is where the bulk of the available money is.
So this
Willie
is
Sutton, there we go.
for decreasing funding, and the pro would be, there's a lot of money there.
Yeah, and one of the other cons is the way state aids work. If we reduce our highway funding, we get less money from the state, and it's a rolling average. Yep.
I got a con for you, public perception.
People like their highways.
So they like them fixed too.
Well, they like to talk about them.
Yeah.
Just check social media once.
And one consequence is that if we have a plan, and we don't fund it in any one year, then we get behind on the plan, which means that we have a deficit going forward that we have to deal with.
Well, and I can add another one, and Dustin can correct me if I'm wrong. But maintenance is a lot cheaper than replacement.
Here, con, right?
Yep.
The knock.
I think somebody already alluded to this, but um, a con would be that this puts us, I don't know how many years, but additional years farther behind in our road replacement cycle.
Right.
I mean,
Slows down.
moves us from, whatever, I'm making a stab, moves us from 42 years to 50.
Well, and that's a safety issue and a cost issue for people using the roads.
True.
I would think that a con would be that, and Dustin, I don't know if he's, has any numbers, but, would be the fact that a road that has been just patched and repaired and is rough is certainly gotta be harder on plow trucks. The cars that we all own.
May I? I actually think a con would be that, improving our road infrastructure has to be an economic development issue for the county. And economic development, I think, is a significant problem for us. More economic development would address some of these issues on the front side as opposed to patching them up on the rear end. So I think it's a disincentive to ongoing economic development.
Like how, building. Like, I'm not gonna build my house on a crummy road.
Right, and I'm not going to locate my factory on a crummy road.
Oh, turn your microphone on and ask it, and if not, we'll move it along to somewhere later.
Well, thank you. I don't know if this is the correct spot to ask this question or to think about it, but I think a pro is your fiduciary responsibility as a county board member. Now, always looking for the cheapest way out or savaging our budgets as we tend to do doesn't necessarily mean that that's the most fiduciary responsible way of taking care of the taxpayer money. Now, nobody likes higher taxes, nobody likes more money generated, but to do a good job as a public entity, I think it behooves us to maximize our ability to tax and levy, to deliver the things that should be delivered. Because if you don't do that, the argument could be made that you're not doing your fiduciary responsibility. Yeah, you might be picking the cheapest way out now, but long-term, are you really doing your fiduciary responsibility? And I know this is kind of an esoteric subject here, but really that's what we're here for. That's what village boards are here for, and town boards, everybody is to make the best use of the taxpayers' money. Now, sometimes that takes a pretty good explanation and a good discussion, but I think common sense, our old people around here didn't get to be 90 years old by not knowing what they're doing. And I think if you explain things correctly and approach it from that point of view, not always looking to cut, not always looking to save a buck, but how can I deliver the services that we need here that best utilizes the taxpayers' money and the future? Now, I think overall, for our newer board members, to me, that would be an important idea to try to kernel and to get in their minds, because this should be a driving factor as we go forward, because we never have enough money. I mean, God knows we don't. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't make hard decisions that are good for us long-term. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I would call that one both a pro and a con, depending on how you,
And not to say that good arguments can't be made both ways. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that, and I know nothing about blacktop. But the guys that know blacktop know how you ought to spend your money to get the most money out of it, and therefore I'm supposed to be here to make the best decision I can.
May I ask Supervisor Stan a question?
Sure.
So I'm just trying to understand. So you're saying that if we put more money into highway, that would require us to put less money into other departments or other budgetary areas, and that's not responsible? I just want to make sure I understand you, Gary.
No, I'm not saying rob Peter to pay Paul. I'm saying that when we look at this whole tangled mess that we wrestle with, it is very hard to keep the ultimate goal in mind, if you know what I mean. Delivering fiduciary responsible decisions to our taxpayer.
okay, I think I've got, so what you're talking about is not so much one of the pros or cons, but one of the lenses through which we have to view this process.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I
thank
think
you.
for some of us older board members or guys that have been on village boards or town boards, you guys faced, those folks face that all the time. I mean, and that's nothing new because nobody has enough money to do what they ought to do. That doesn't lessen the responsibility for us as county board members to do the very best we can to get stretch the dollar the furthest that would be best for our taxpayer. That's all I'm saying. And I have no magic bullet. I just think that sometimes, and I'll just digress just a minute here. We as county government and town government and village government and city government are not a business. We are in the business of delivering services. Services cost money. And to deliver those services, as we all know, it costs money. And I'm just saying that the idea that you can run this like a business is not correct. You can have good business practices, certainly good management practices, but in the end, we're a service, not a business. Thank you.
All right, if you would take one of your sticky notes and if you would just write roads on it, and if you would rate on a scale of 1 being there would be no decrease in funding for highway projects, and 10 being that projects should be reduced, where would you rate your rank where your appetite is for that?
So are we
What's the
making the
scale again?
assumption that 7 million is an amount that we've agreed is necessary to maintain roads?
No, just I think it's more of a absolutely not like
Okay, right.
or I mean, I'd say if you were a 10, you're probably saying you're going for 7 million. If if I'm a 0, I'm going for nothing, or I'm 1, I'm nothing. So what 0 is, no, the 0 part of it or the 1 part about it would be no increases or no, I'm sorry.
Reduce amount to roads.
Right, I've got to read my own question. There's no decrease, sorry, I do have it backwards.
So
Let's do 0 is, so you guys are the guinea pigs. 0 is no highway funding. 10 is maximum highway funding.
okay.
And nobody's holding you to any of this. It's just that if we get 12 county board members to say no money for highway, we need to kind of know that.
But you think if we rate this as 0 or 1, we're saying no funding for highway? Or are we saying no increase in highway?
Well, I know, yeah, so, okay, so great question, because let me go back and clarify. We're talking about highway projects. We're not talking about highway funding at large. We still have
Right,
to
but
plow
project,
roads and
right.
repair, do chip sealing and those things that we do. We're talking about,
New
funding
We got it. But
projects.
so 0, 1 would be no County Road B,
No, yep, no.
no Q.
Right.
Okay, got it. I think.
Great, it's really.
The problem for
Thank
people
you
who-
For your
Well, I
Because it's helpful to just walk through
did survey research for 35
Yeah.
years, so scale points are important.
Absolutely.
Is this a Likert scale? or-
I know, right?
One number, roads, so I know which number what you're ranking and what your number would be. A bit of a litmus test where you sort of stand on roads. If you all do fives, I'm gonna come back and haunt you.
-1.
All right, you can fold those, you can hang on to them, you can stick them, we'll stick them all together. Like I say, I don't care who votes what. All right, so already learning, I'm gonna flip this around because we're gonna talk about wages. And so we have two parts of that equation. We have a cost of living increase potentially of some percentage point, and we have the steps that are naturally built into our pay grid, which people tend to advance by the year on up to 11 steps. So I'm gonna flip it around because then the negative didn't work for my brain. It probably didn't work for yours as well either. Let's do the pros of maintaining salary increases and the cons of not maintaining them.
Chris, one of the things I think when you have a grid is people expect to see that. That's an expectation. I took this job in 5 years, I'm gonna make that amount of
Mhm.
money. So it's a pro to keep it the way it is.
Okay. And I'm doing it the opposite. I'm saying it's a con that people expect the grid and are disappointed, are whatever.
Right, if you had put it in the pros, I would have said to put it in the cons.
Yeah, that's a great one.
On the pro side, it is generally cheaper to maintain your workforce than to recruit and train new workers.
A refill. Here.
Con, retention and recruiting.
I think
Well,
it's
not
actually here,
doing
we, I kind of split
Not-
this around, a pro to, well, it could go either way, but the pro to providing salary increases is it improves retention and recruiting. The
Yeah.
con is if you don't, you create issues with retention and recruitment.
May, I mean, for heaven's sake, our employees are our chief resource. We could do nothing without our employees. They need to be rewarded. And I think every single person in this room would acknowledge that our staff is excellent and they do a really excellent, most of the time, overachieving kind of job to provide service to people. They have to have a cost of living raise in an economy that is not as inflationary, but still inflationary. They need to be compensated fairly.
If I can throw one in here just from, this would be that it's a really competitive job market.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Well, and that also speaks to the quality of our employees. If we have very high quality employees, headhunters find that to be a delightful pool.
Mm.
I would say it, I'm gonna, on the cons side of it, absent increases, you get, as my mom used to say, what Patty shot at. Which is all true. It was really Patty, not Patty, Patty. Patty shot and missed after being at the whatever too long
Right,
tavern.
tavern,
Right. So you get the leftovers.
yeah.
That's probably not a very nice way to talk about people, but you don't get the cream of the crop.
Our excellent staff think we're hilarious.
A con would be more stress and for the department heads because of lower morale and lower morale itself.
We pay him to say that. We could
You're
get your
right.
check when you leave, John.
Right.
And again, on the purely mercenary side of things, people who are not well compensated are much less enthused about doing the work.
Mhm.
You get better performance from people who are valued and understand that they are valued.
So a con here, because this is what we wrestle with, is this is an ever increasing unfunded cost. At least part of it. Some of the things that are like grant funded and whatever have so for instance, in the child support office where 66% of what she spends on every dollar is federally reimbursed, costs a lot less than in another spot where it's 100% levy, but it's definitely.
Cost of doing business.
Chris, did you say that you're planning on doing this exercise with the full board?
No, with each of the standing committees.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Just
trying-
so that we can do a small, because you guys are the largest by far. Most of the standing committees are 5.
Yeah, giving people the opportunity to have this conversation in a smaller space with a little bit less pressure is one of the big benefits, I think, of it, and doing it committee by committee. Although everybody who's on 2 committees will,
Yeah, you're gonna
Get
get,
3
you're
of
gonna
these.
get it a lot. I'll provide you with the cheat sheets and you guys can look like rock stars.
There you go.
I do think we need, in that discussion, that we need to maybe figure out a way to be more clear about what is a pro and what is.
Exactly.
Yeah, I so appreciate you being the guinea pigs
Yeah,
because
so
that's helpful.
would a con be that we may be boxing ourselves into cutting staff? Our payroll expenses go up. We can't afford to.
I heard a great phrase this week. You can do anything you want, you just can't do everything.
Hmm.
You know? Okay, so not to beleaguer the point, because again, you guys are the more seasoned of the board in terms of the budget side of it. But if you would take one of your sticky notes and write salary or wages or something on it. And again, if you would do, let's stick with the same, so I remember, 0 would be no salary increases. 10 would be cost of living, kind of, again, the continuum, where would you land? Cost of living and step increases. All right, and our last one are operations. So the pros of maintaining operations and the cons of cuts. Oh, well, I guess the cons would be with cuts. You're right, the 6 of thinking. And I welcome anyone's thoughts about how to, I have to tap into Diane because she knows way more about doing this. So the pros would be what's the benefit of maintaining the existing money to operations? And the cons would be what happens if we cut it. And again, operations, just for the, sorry, Gary, just for the sake of clarity, operations includes all those highway.
Yeah.
You know, plowing roads, chip sealing,
Building a path.
building, well, that was actually.
Well, no, it's project.
Yes,
Right.
but yeah, the
I-
routine stuff, the mowing, the sides of the roads, et cetera.
This could be both level of service to the public.
So the level of service is maintained. And here it
I
decreases.
would think so, yeah. Yeah, right.
Chris, could you
That's all right.
clarify? I'm not quite sure. You're not talking just about highway operations, right?
No, no.
No, everything.
Everything else we do. So we have, if you go back to this page, and if you look at the fact, we have $25 million of levy that we levy for each year. 5 of that's in debt service, and the remaining 20 of that is in operations. And
Sorry.
that's about, yeah, absent. I'll just say that's the rest of kind of the operations. That's the, everything from, having elections.
Mm.
And think about all the things that levy pays for in just our routine operations. Having elections, having a surveyor, doing land and water conservation, having
Water
some public
quality
health
testing.
departments, some DHS, some public health activities, some DHS activities, a lot of the sheriff's department. Because there's not a lot of other money. I think there's about $6 million of levy in the sheriff's department.
I mean, the obvious big con is that any significant cut to operations is also going to be a significant cut to services.
And to follow that up, cut services like that, then you're cutting personnel, probably.
Mhm.
Public safety.
I don't know where you want to put this, but our staff have done a really wonderful job over the last 3 budget cycles. Certainly over the last 2, of not increasing operations costs at all. They have sort of foregone things that they might like to have to provide services to clients to keep this no increase in operations.
Costs have stayed steady.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, more or less over my entire tenure on the board. So one in the cons that might not be immediately obvious is it increases liability risk to the county across a number of different places. For example, one of the reasons we supported having further personnel in the jail was having completely unsupervised single people running the jail is a liability risk. I mean, we could, for example, cut our cybersecurity budget a bunch, and the result would be disaster.
I'm gonna throw in one here just because this is the consideration, part of the consideration on our end. This is, I'm just gonna put very complicated.
I'm sure.
Because not all things that look like cuts. All things that look like cuts are cuts.
Mhm.
Unintended consequences.
Yeah, sort of particularly in human services, that's a huge issue.
Yeah.
Even if we don't provide the service, we still have to pay.
Well, and another thing that really stuck with me, and this is a bit of this that's really common sense, I guess, but if you just say, we're gonna do a 5% cut across the board, right? You're just throwing a dart. You have no research to say whether that's a good idea. You have no research to know what the impact to that is. It's assuming that all things are sort of equal in that, and that cut wouldn't be absorbed equally. This is very, very complicated, and it's also the area where you probably get the most public feedback, like
Pushback.
pushback. My program, this serves my whatever I do with. You mean I can't go to the county clerk's office when I want to get my
Right.
whatever, or the register of deeds or whatever? It's very visible. That's a good one, actually. It's very good.
I think a pro is, maintaining efficiency. You know, the new technology, how we use it, and, we would lose, we don't stay on top of that, we lose it.
Argue, I wouldn't add this necessarily in another spot. In fact, I really don't intend to edit another spot, but I would add it for you to say that essentially we are currently funding them. We have had sufficient funds to fund our
Yeah.
operations.
Yeah.
So cutting them redistributes the money to something else, but it doesn't, we're not cutting them because we can't afford to continue to do them in their current state. All right,
Can I-
take your little, oh, sorry.
Yeah, can I just,
Yeah.
real quick? Just in the process of presenting this to people, because as I look at both of these comments, it's or columns, it's the pros of maintaining the services that we have, that we should provide, and then the cons of cutting them.
Right.
Should we allow for a column that says the pros of cutting them?
Yeah,
Like,
I'll really
just-
think that through and consult with Diane, like, how do we
Just so if people, to force people to have to say it, if
Yeah.
they think so, and explain why. I think that's a good exercise.
Hmm.
We can figure out how to do that.
Maybe.
And I think that's how we kind of started out conceptualizing it, but we lost it. So we need to just, put a little bit more thought into that. Let me just throw out one other consideration to you. Again, more as the executive committee, it's really in the weeds, but I think it's a really important one and we're trying to quantify it. But it goes back to highway funding. If we did no highway operations or highway projects,
Right.
and we just did operations, it would cost us money anyway.
Right.
Because we have staff allocated to that, we have equipment that earns money, makes money doing those things. If we chose not to do that, it isn't like we could say, we're just not gonna do $7 million worth of projects and we're gonna save in $7 million. Just doesn't work that way.
And with respect to operations, I mean, there are programs in human services that we could shut down, but we would still owe the state money or the feds.
Yeah. The other one that's bound to come up is NDC. We can shut the doors to NDC tomorrow and not save $1 of levy. Now, that's not entirely true because we do pay on the debt service. But on the operating side, that's true. We don't budget any levy for operations for NDC.
Well, and one of the inherent complexities of any of these conversations is the degree to which our dollars are leveraged by state and or federal dollars. So a lot of the highway money will be 80-20 money where we're, $1 million that we don't spend is actually $5 million that doesn't get spent.
Right.
We're working on we're working on actually kind of, at an accelerator that shows you if you cut here, what that impact is in terms of. It is. All right, if you could, they're operating or something on your last. You know, and rank that from, 0 being, should, cut operations and be like that, and now I'm confusing myself.
No, you're right. Oh,
Yeah, 0 cut operations to find money for other things, and or 10 being maintain it totally as it is. And you can grow it. Not advocating for that. And again, thank you for being a test audience, much learned. And hopefully you'll see the progress as you go through your committee, your additional standing committee meetings. If you have feedback, we are not married to any piece of this. We want it to be helpful, useful, to get people
Thank you.
thinking. So if you have comments, email me, write it on a piece of toilet paper, stick it under my door. I don't care what you do, how it gets to me. Please, not a used piece of toilet paper, but other than that, I'm okay. Yeah, and we want to create a non-threatening way for people to have a conversation that perhaps causes one to stop and go, I hadn't thought about that.
may I ask a question, since I specialize in asking stupid questions? Are we making, I mean, I know these are ballpark numbers. I know that we don't have a budget yet. Are we assuming, if I'm just looking at these numbers, that we're gonna be $3 million? We're gonna be scrambling for $3 million in October?
So let me answer that backwards and tell you what we do know. So we do know that we'll have some TIF.
Right.
We do know that we'll have some increased shared revenue money. We will have some net new construction money. Our sales tax are running higher. Our investments are running higher.
Yeah.
Investment income is running higher. And so whatever the offset to that is to whatever more we need, which essentially, if you say about $1 million for salary and fringe and about 7 million in highway projects, no borrowing. I mean, that assumes no borrowing.
Yeah.
That's about what the whole would be to start. But again, until we actually run those numbers, I'm hesitant to say that's the amount.
And unless I'm misremembering, the Elk Creek Solar isn't really gonna kick in until the very end of 2025, so
That's
that's.
correct. I just
that's
thought
really
they're not gonna start construction until 2025. And we will know by the time the other thing we will know is we will know where we were at with regard to what we budgeted for use out of the general fund from this year. Right.
Or from last year, and then kind of where we're at. So, yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces, but I think $3 to $4 million is probably a pretty reasonable spot to be think about.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I think that's all I have.
Okay. I will move us back to a little more formal footing. I wanted that to feel more like it would feel in committee. So item 6, reports, resolutions, and ordinances, the county board from the executive committee. Resolution authorizing the general obligation note parameters. It's just all of the paperwork to approve the $3 million that we essentially already approved. So I would need a motion and a second for that. And then Supervisor Morehouse, Supervisor Headland. Does anyone have any questions, observations, anything they want to add, or shall we just vote on that and move it along? Supervisor Bauer.
I just got a question. I mean, if we okay to 3 million to go ahead and we only need 1 million, you'll just take 1 million, or do you have to take all 3?
I believe it's up to 3 million is the way the parameters are set up.
I thought that's the way I read, but I'd want to make sure if you don't need it, why take it, I guess.
The way the schedule is currently set out, we'd look at probably August or September. There's some benefit to doing it before the election, just because the market tends to become more volatile after an election. The market just doesn't like instability. or unpredictability. So, so we've been advised by our bond advisor to try to get it done before the election, but that leaves us the whole fall.
Any further questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes on to county board. B, resolution approving 2025 25 to 29 capital improvement plan, excuse me. Motion and a second. Supervisor Headland moves. Supervisor Morehouse seconds. You've all seen the capital improvement stuff to date. Is there anything about it that moves you to need further details at this point? Oh. Chris, your microphone.
I do. I would say that, so the plan as it's currently written does still include $300,000 of the potential building of a storage unit at the sheriff's department. And in the point in time as we were putting this together, we did have a meeting with Cedar Corp, who's currently doing the needs assessment for the highway department. And they are going to build in, they're going to get us some numbers, but it'll be a relatively nominal cost to build in, also assessing the need and potential cost on the sheriff's department side. So we didn't pull that out because that's your decision to make, but the sheriff's department is okay with pulling that $300,000 out and moving it out based on whatever the building is potentially will cost. So it does decrease it by that amount. And I would invite Beata. Beata, do you have anything you want to say about all this? You've worked on it. She's looking.
Okay.
So our recommendation would be, there are potentials on the bottom. I'm sorry, I'm not finding mine, which is why I'm scrambling, but there are recommendations on the bottom of the one single
Yeah.
page, the back of this one that's titled Proposed Fiscal Year 2025 Capital Improvements. So you're actually approving the 2025 to 2029 plan, but you're also making a recommendation with regard to the funding of the 2025 plan and those options, as we laid them out, or anything else that you wish to consider, are on the back page. I would note, we have balanced out our ARPA money, and this is without the ARPA interest. This is just plain old ARPA money left over, which is $708,230. And we would advocate spending that, and then we would encumber that money at this year for things like potentially the squad cars, things that are relatively known cost, but we could spend. So we could encumber it yet this year by the end of the year. And so again, if you look at the, we also have, as Beata indicated in option number 1, we have about $360,000 of some debt service fund. So that's money that we've previously borrowed that has not been spent to date, and is not encumbered to be spent in any manner, and could be it has to go to a like purpose. So if we borrowed it for, like if we borrowed it for all squad cars are the easy one. If we borrowed money for squad cars or equipment or vehicle purchases, we can spend the $360,000 on those purchases as well. So option number 1 has us zeroing out that account, spending encumbering the $780,000 of ARPA, using some fund balance. But again, this is based on Beata, are you looking at this right now? This is based on keeping the $300,000 in, right? So if we take the $300,000 for the sheriff's department out, then it would reduce the fund balance or any, I guess, any of those categories, but
Okay, for simplicity of voting, Vaughn, Diane, are you comfortable with your motion, including the 300,000 pulled out rather than actually having to do an amendment, or are you?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're fine.
So that's what we're voting on. Supervisor Bauer, you had a question.
I just have a question on the neighbors on their 2025 base trim for 3 houses. It's collected by fees, of course, but don't we only have 3 houses? It says 3 houses per year. How do we do 3 houses per year if we only have 3 houses? I mean, well, can I get my house included in that?
sure, then we just have to do 4 houses.
There's only the 3 houses, you're gonna do 1 a year, basically not 3.
I think there's, is that neighborhoods?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
there's,
they're
3 neighborhoods in each building.
Oh, 3 neighborhoods in each building.
Right, and perhaps the houses is the same as neighborhood in this case. Is that right,
That-
Beata?
That's what's a little confusing, yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost certain it's it's the neighborhoods, 3 in each building.
Okay,
One building.
It's one
Yeah.
building per year.
Yeah.
One neighborhood.
He divided that out rather quickly.
thank you.
Further questions or comments? All right. If that's all clear, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Correct.
Minus the 300,000.
Right, so it just for the record and just because it will be, sometimes we go back and listen to these afterwards when we try to remember what we've decided. It would be utilizing $360,000 of the debt service fund and zeroing that out, encumbering the remaining ARPA money, using $181,000 of fund balance, and then the highway equipment replacement fund and the fees from the NDC.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yep.
6C, 2024 budget adjustment for Highway ENS Health Department. You've all seen a million of these at this point. It's the usual. Yeah, Supervisor Bauer moves. Supervisor Prochnow seconds. Anyone feel a need for clarification on any of the points in the budget adjustment? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. D, resolution approving the opioid settlement. This is another one of the ongoing, big opioid settlements. This is, I believe, Kroger's share,
Yes, the Kroger company.
via Pick and Save. It's like 1.3 billion nationally, and it'll be apportioned the same way all the previous opioid settlement shares have been, with the same kind of encumbrance on what it can and can't be spent for. Oh, sorry, motion and a second. Supervisor Morehouse, Supervisor Calabrese. Nick, did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, briefly, just for the benefit of maybe supervisors who haven't participated in activities relating to this. In November of 2017, the County Board of Supervisors approved the county's participation as a plaintiff, along with a lot of other local governments and non-governmental plaintiffs, in a lawsuit against a number of pharmaceutical manufacturers, distributors, and retailers. Around the United States, claims were filed in federal and state courts. Dunn County's case is ventured in federal court, and we've been grouped with other cases in what's called an MDL, or multi-district litigation. There are currently more than 2,400 plaintiffs in the federal multi-district litigation, the MDL. There have been some settlements reached. There have been defendants who have filed for bankruptcy. Through all of this, our legal counsel has been keeping us up to date and bringing us important documents for action and signature. At this time, There is a tentative settlement scheduled with the Kroger Company. The information that I got was that Kroger will pay up to $1.2 billion, I think throughout the United States in 11 payments annually, assuming full participation and approval in Wisconsin. First payments could be dispersed yet, or should be dispersed yet in 2024, with subsequent payments being received in March each year after 2024. So early on in the litigation, when settlement became a realistic possibility, there was a considerable amount of time spent by our legal counsel with the court's oversight and participation and some complex mathematical formulas that resulted in a determination of each local government's allocation of settlement proceeds. So Dunn County's allocation is 0.442%. That's going to be the same throughout the case. Settlement proceeds received by the county have to be placed in a restricted or designated account and can only be used for approved services relating to abatement of opioid problems. And the deadline for having all of these documents back is to our legal counsel is August 12th. So I apologize for the short time period that you've had to review them, but this is essentially a resolution approving the county's participation in the settlement and approving the execution or signing of an addendum to the memorandum of understanding that delineates the distribution of proceeds between the state government and local governments. I just want to give a little bit of a history because it's been a while
Oh, yeah.
since
And
we talked about this.
I think it's probably also worth noting that Wisconsin has been particularly on top of this. And one
Yeah.
of the reasons that the legal settlement went through in the way that it has is because the tobacco settlements did not really go out to the local municipalities and counties. So the municipalities and counties nationally kind of got together and said, hey, since we're the people who are actually giving the services and dealing with the results, maybe we should do this on our own this time and not let the state wander off with all of the proceeds.
They've still managed to find a way to get in on the action.
Oh, absolutely. But
It's a good resolution, and Wisconsin, as the chairs noted, has a very good legislative policy and procedure in place for handling these settlement proceeds as they come in. And there are other states where it's not quite as tight and they have more work to do.
all right. Now, who was the motion and the second on that?
Supervisor Morehouse and Supervisor Calabrese.
Just double checking.
Good thing you remember.
Pretty sure that was the order.
You are
That's right.
absolutely correct. Having been reminded, I remember recognizing. Any further questions or comments? All right, then, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 7, review of reports, resolutions, and ordinances. This is the easier one because we don't have to vote on most of them. Committee on Administration Resolution for One-Time Vacation Pay, drawdown E911. Vaughn, does anyone actually need an explanation of this? We've done these before. Okay, you're all on top of it. Resolution amending the inventory of job classification for IT division restructure. Again, fairly straightforward. Does anyone need a in-depth review of that? All right, resolution establishing a policy on policies. Supervisor Steen.
Yeah, on section 5 there, the 5B, the policy approval. Policies will be set by the Dunn County Board of Supervisors or a standing committee as prescribed in Dunn County Code code of ordinances. My question would be, does that go back to the whole county board to adopt that policy?
I believe that it is dependent on what type of policy and whether we have an established procedure that allows the appropriate committee to simply create that policy, or whether it's one of the ones that actually has to go back to the county board. So for example, there are policies that HHS deals with that are not, they don't have a huge impact on the whole county board, and it isn't necessary for it to go back to the county board for that level of approval. Chris, you?
While I understand your explanation, I would be more comfortable if the whole county board was approving it rather than a standing committee.
Well, I mean, we've been doing it this way since the founding of the county.
Well, let me give you an example. So for instance, in the behavioral health clinic in DHS, by statute, and by administrative rule in there, they have to create policies around how they run a behavioral health clinic. But practical realities, they're really not policies. They're really operating
Exact
guidelines or procedures or whatever. Those would be the types of things that would stay in the standing committee.
I'll withdraw my question after being thoroughly chastised.
The other one is like NDC. Carmen's got a book full of how you should wash your hands and where you should put your Kleenexes, et cetera. And those are the types of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the kinds of things where we have to do it this way because the state tells us to do it this way, and having the county board have an argument about whether we're going to do what the state tells us to or not is of limited, mind you, I'm willing to have those arguments. But
Here, just to make sure I give up there.
all right. Anyone have anything else they want to talk about on a policy on policies? Oh, no, it's good. B, Highway Committee, Budget Adjustment, Highway, WISDOT, LFA projects.
That actually got rolled into the one above it.
Okay, great. I was kind of wondering about that. Health and Human Services Committee, 24, okay, again. D, Planning, Resources and Development, Ordinance, Rezones. You've all seen a bunch of rezones. Does anyone wish to go into them in greater depth? Or do you feel the need to?
No.
All right. 1 and 2, Ordinance Amendment, Chapter 13 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. We've been having this as an ongoing discussion item for a while. Does anyone feel the need to go into depth on this particular set of it? All right. Oh, Supervisor
Is
Proctor.
this part of the aid?
Yes, it is the ADU.
Okay,
It is the ADU.
Yeah.
I've had a couple townships actually contact me and they're
All
still
right.
looking
They
at,
did.
they really like to go back to committee and use it as a special exemption. Was that talked about or?
Yes.
And that was just,
Go ahead, Tom. No, all of the evidence that we compiled and reviewed suggested that adding additional restrictions and processes for people hoping to build a granny flat in their yard, make it less likely that it's going to happen. So we discussed the idea of sending this to the Board of Adjustment. We've discussed the ideas of having potentially parallel authority with townships, and basically said no. The townships did not participate in the first months of our ongoing conversation about this. And only lately have they decided that they need to have some sort of additional authority. And I'm certainly opposed to it. And I think generally the committee was opposed to erecting additional roadblocks to accessory dwelling units.
okay. Okay, I just think this is gonna be brought up and
It is gonna,
It is
it's
coming up.
gonna-
it is gonna be brought up.
I think
and,
it's gonna have a hard time
it may-
passing the way it is, so.
Well, it may be, and it may be that we need to amend it.
Okay.
But I don't know whether we as a committee would support amending it or not. I think we probably wouldn't. I think Diana described our discussion. The question of whether or not that the current special exceptions policy or protocol is not perfect. I mean, what some of the towns have said, well, why don't we have a parallel process that allows us to review the special exceptions also? That's not a bad idea, but that's not, doing that would complicate this, passing this ordinance. And we have had numerous discussions about this. We've had towns come to us and say, we like everything except we don't want it in residential.
Yeah.
So we've excluded it to simply general agriculture.
Yeah, that's the only one that would be
yeah, and
affected really anyway, so.
And the town, and even so, I know there are towns that would like to have it be a special exception. The committee's feeling is that it's best to leave it as a at-right option in general agriculture, that it will be a beneficial process. And that if we want to talk about modifying special exception rules, I think we're open to that. And but that would be something that really would need some real discussion.
Okay,
And-
just want to know.
No, I expect that it's going to be not without some discussion review.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I actually asked Assistant Corporation Counsel, who has been with us through this whole sort of laborious process. It's not technically illegal, but the county does not have parallel authority with the townships. So that would send it to the Board of Adjustment. Corporation Counsel has said that by statute, processes need to be clear and understandable on part of applicants. So sending this through a variety of potentially unknown processes with a potentially different decision-making makes it questionable. I mean, he won't say that it's illegal, but it makes it questionable whether it adheres to the way that these processes are supposed to work.
I might suggest that you have Assistant Corporation Counsel prepare a brief statement about that for the board.
I asked him about that this evening.
Great. Because I think that clarification will be very useful to making the discussion go a little more quickly in one way or the other.
Yeah, and I hope I'm not putting words in Christian's mouth, but he basically says this is a bad idea.
Okay. Supervisor Kinnear.
Yeah, thank you. I want to emphasize this is a compromise. It's not something all of us liked. I would
Really?
not have said what Diane said right there, as far as the reason I chose to go along with it, putting people through loopholes and so forth. I don't look at it that way. I look at it from a different point of view, but it is a compromise. And one thing we did not discuss is something that was brought up by the townships way late, and that was the parallel approval. We had asked whether the townships would have that authority, and we gathered it was either so difficult or iffy that it wasn't a good idea. And since that time, we have had input from one town chair in particular, citing places where it's used. So that could come up too now. Got to remember where I'm going here. I think this is not going to end here. And another thing that Supervisor Morehouse mentioned is that the townships came in late. Yes, that's been the case of the townships coming in late every time we've done something with the PRD. It kind of takes a while to get momentum going. I think the ones that I spoke to said it kind of morphed from what they thought was going to be just a granny flat to another house. And then that's when they started coming in. So it was a compromise. I would not blame the townships for coming in a little later because it took a while, but they did come in. And I think there's going to be changes in the future because I think we can improve.
Yeah, I just want to, I mean, like I said, I deal with a lot of townships, I deal with their chairmans, and there's not a lot of people excited about it. And I think they really like the parallel authority type. They want some say in things. I mean, you know, they take county zoning and then they have no say, which they're would like a little more say in that, I guess. So just what I've been hearing. So, all right, thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Supervisor Quinn, did you have a?
This has really been a hard issue. And if you could, when you sit in the meetings and you hear, I think the idea of having parallel authority is something we should look at, separate from this particular issue, whether that's something we want to have as part of our ordinances or not. We as a committee should look at that. And if we decided to do that, it would always be possible to amend the ordinance and include that in there. But I think, you know, we had just countless people come and citizens and ask us and say, I want to do this and I can't do it. I need this kind of, I really want you to support this sort of an ordinance. Our thinking, I think, was that the best way to do it was to write the ordinance so that the standards are very clear and that the kind of questions that the townships are raising are answered in the application process and the review process.
Yes, just a question, if
Yep,
I may.
please go.
Is this, this is just a first reading on Wednesday night? And so the vote is July?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Stevens?
A second.
No, we're just reporting. This.
Oh, reporting, okay. Good.
Does anyone want to update on what we're talking about, or is this? Oh, sorry, thank you.
If anyone wants information, Chase is
Yeah,
Here.
does anyone want to?
the one.
Let's have Chase explain it briefly. I think it's an
Sure.
important idea. And not everybody had it.
Oh, you could just about peer over the top, I think.
Okay, yes, thank you. So I've taken on the task of this topic as it pertains to the Chippewa River Trail and the portion that connects the Red Cedar Trail and that where it meets the Chippewa River Trail just south of the Chippewa River in Dunn County, all the way into Durand into Pepin County. It's about a 6.5 mile stretch of trail that is currently owned by NSP or Excel Energy, and they're looking to divest in that property. It's an important public access, public use area right now. It's a corridor that's our portion that would be in Dunn County is about 1.5 miles, around 37 acres of a strip of land, the old railroad corridor. It connects, like I mentioned, it connects to the municipality of Durand and Pepin County, all the way into Menominee through via the Red Cedar Trail, and all the way you go all the way up to Cornell to Burnett Island State Park. So there's over 76 miles of trail, and this portion is a piece that's in private ownership, but is used by the public currently. Excel Energy or NSP has approached both counties, offering our opportunity to acquire the property. And we have gone through a number of different scenarios, but currently are in the process of working with Landmark Conservancy. And that's hence the reason for the memorandum of understanding to work through a process that they are eligible for stewardship funds or Knowles Nelson stewardship funds through the state that are not necessarily eligible for us at a county. So based on an appraisal, this grant would pay up to 50% of appraised value of the property. Excel Energy has expressed an interest in selling the property at a reduced rate below what an estimated appraisal would be. And therefore, there is a potential where we could acquire this property for a very little cost. The cost potentially would be hard stuff like closing costs, title work, that sort of thing. And it would maintain the public access to the trail. So right now, this request is just to enter into an MOU with Landmark and Pepin County to continue this process and allow Landmark to apply for this grant on behalf of this situation. And then depending on whether that grant is awarded, then we would be back to discuss the next steps and where we proceed after that. So I'd be happy to answer more questions on more on the trail and what it's used for and stuff right now, but.
Anybody? Looks like you're,
Well, how many acres are actually involved with this?
So I think Pepin County's was 63, somewhere in there, and we're at 37. So it's, it's a railroad corridor, it's very narrow. Should it go into private ownership, it likely maybe would be adjacent landowners that would purchase it, but then it would cut off public access to the whole system. So we're not talking about a block of land, we're talking about a narrow corridor, 1.5 miles long, roughly 100 feet wide or so.
Nobody else? Thank you, Chase. That's very helpful. D5 budget adjustment again, that's with the big pile that we went through. On to reports from the standing committees. Oh, let's start over on this side. Supervisor Headland.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee administration met at 3 o'clock here in this room back May 23rd. We had a number of items to take a look at. We heard of some out of class pay for associate who is helping in the 911 department. Just simply because there's always been such a shortage of staff that he is trying to relieve our department manager and has done so in some of the duties. And so we're going to continue on with that. Approve the vouchers from 4/17 to 5/15. And then the other items, of course, we're passing on the policy on policies, vacation pay down, and the changing the inventory of job classifications for the reorganization of IT. We did have a closed session, which we went through and I would say we resolved. Our next meeting on that committee will be June 27th here at 3 o'clock.
Thank you, Supervisor Headland. Any questions for Supervisor Headland? Supervisor Kinnear.
Thank you. A report for the neighbors of Dunn County. Administrator Cameron Meyer is still on family leave, and she will be for some time yet. But Laura Briesmeister has done an excellent job taking over. She ran the last meeting, and the next meeting she runs will be her last for a while before she takes family leave. And I think maybe Chris will be taking over. So, but that's fitting because we have 4 new members on the committee anyway. So we're continuing with orientation each week, something new to try and bring the committee members up to date. And Laura did a great job last month, and she will be doing so again. A new director of nursing, I think, is doing okay. I haven't heard anything bad about it, and the usual business has been going on. And that's it for the neighbors.
There's something in the water there?
I don't think that's how that happens.
Thank you, Supervisor Kinnear. Supervisor
Thank
Morehouse.
you, Mr. Chairman. The health, excuse me, the Health and Human Services Board last met on Thursday, May 23rd. At the request of the Legislative Committee, we took an early look at our, usually multi-page legislative agenda. And we also had some discussion about the possibility of a resolution in support of Wisconsin adopting the federal Medicaid reimbursement. At the direction of the committee was in favor of moving forward with that. At the direction of the committee, we were asked to craft a resolution that was not simply generic, but would include information about health outcomes in Dunn County, costs in Dunn County, economic benefits in Dunn County. As it turns out, that's not the easiest task in the world to do because there are not a lot of those data, but we're picking at it, and I don't think this is time sensitive in any way. We have one new member, so each of our departments did a really comprehensive orientation, and we will continue to do that. One of our new member asked a number of, I think, brilliant questions about our vouchers and why they appeared the way they do, and I think all of us were glad that she did so. Yeah, I guess I'll do the rest. We did some looked at budget. Our budgets come in very slowly, expenses come in very slowly, and it looks like everybody's on track to do just fine. We reviewed the DHS vouchers paid at the request of the health department, which has just received certification from DATCAP on its water testing facility. We approved a 3-part policy. One, establishing a $25 fee for the test. 2, making sure that the fees charged are actually aligned with our staff and other costs for doing the testing and not unduly affect or hamper local businesses and others. And 3, to come back in 6 months with some experience under their belts and see how this is working and what else might need to be changed. We approved the budget, the 2 budget adjustments that we've looked at. And our next meeting is June 27th at 6 p.m.
Thank you, Supervisor Morehouse. Supervisor Calabrese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Judiciary and Law Committee met in this room on May 20th. And pretty light agenda, no action items, but we did have a new supervisor who was at his first meeting, Supervisor Dunn. That's how you pronounce it. It's Gjeston, but it's like the TV show. Yeah, Don Jetson. And so the department heads all gave a nice overview of their duties and what they do in their departments, and that was nice for everybody to hear. And he didn't really ask that many questions. He's a law enforcement person himself, and I worked with the sheriff decades ago, and now currently works part-time at the Minneapolis airport as a policeman there. So he should be a good fit for the committee. And that was pretty much it. The sheriff has received 15 applications for a deputy position, and he guesses that about 5 of them could be hired, and they're going through the background process. And the next meeting is here on June 24th at 4:30.
Thank you, Supervisor Calabrese. The hiring news is nice to hear. Supervisor Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So PR&D met before this meeting and reviewed the MOU that Chase described and approved it. Our last meeting was on May 15th, I think. And we pretty much took up the topics that we're forwarding to the county board. So it was the ordinance amendment and the rezone request, and had reports from departments.
Thank you, Supervisor Quinn. I will note that Supervisor Steen is with us, if back and looking in good health, and I'm very happy to see that. So.
Thank you for your comments. It's amazing how you can dress things up. Huh?
Supervisor Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Facilities Committee met on May 22nd at 6 p.m. in this room. And we had a presentation from CORBA, which I think stands for Concerned Off-Road Bicyclists Association. So they talked about all their events that they do, and they help maintain Lake Monoman Park, the trails, the off-road trails. And so they were just hoping, they were looking forward to a bathroom, which I know was in our budget at one time. And also a little bit of help with some of the signage and things. And Scott said that would be fine and they can help with that. Then we discussed the transfer station. So to get a phase 2 like soil test for contamination, it was going to cost $8,400. And then if we found something, we'd have to clean it up. So we passed it back to look at the option of selling as is. So, but someone brought up asked a very good question, and I don't know if anyone on this committee, does anyone see any use for the buildings at the transfer station? We think, because it would cost over $200,000 to fix up the current building that's there. But if anyone had any thoughts before we, but that was what our recommendation was to go forward and look at how we would go about selling it. And just the 10-acre transfer station, not the additional acreage. Then we had a great report from the Fair Board. There's 90 kids registered for the auction. And they're actually having a super senior show this year. So if you wanted to show, you can do it. The fair book is out. But there's still issues with carnivals. It's hard to get labor for the carnivals, but we have one scheduled. And then operations, they've started mowing the parks and mowing around the buildings and fixing things and moving offices. So, and our next meeting is June 26th at 6 p.m. in this room. Thank you.
Supervisor Prochnow.
Sure. Highway and transit met yesterday morning. Nothing really new on transit. Highway, shops are, the crew is out spray patching, filling potholes, washouts. They finished the pedestrian trail. If you notice that, people are using it already. Looks really nice. Projects that we're working on is County Road D project, where you just got done, 90% of the plans are completed, and we're submitting those with SDOT. The plans are already like about 35% more cost than we anticipated when we started the project, but County Road B project's actually moving along. If you've been out that way, it's kind of a mess. The railroad crossing did get closed back down. There's a lot of safety concerns. People are going too fast, not knowing which way to go. So we closed it back down. We're hoping to get that open back up in about 2 weeks when they get one side done. All depends on the weather and how things go. Muddy Creek Bridge down at County Road C is coming along. Hopefully that's going to be done here in the next month or so. So County Road C will be opened up. We've been working on a box culvert for the town of Lucas. We've inventoried all the culverts from 6 feet to 20 feet and for the county and for several townships. We got that done. County Road Z project, the next part of County Road Z project is going to be starting here this week or next week. County Road A down by Rock Creek just got paved. And I think they were paving County Road H by Elk Mound yesterday. So our next meeting is July 10th. That's the report.
Thank you, Supervisor Prochnow.
Wasn't the H scheduled for 2026? Did it get moved up or something? Do you know, or
Which one?
down by Rock Creek? I thought it was scheduled for 2026. I see it's all done, but that's great. Needed it very badly.
Yeah, he did bad.
All right,
Okay.
Supervisor Bauer.
Community Resources and Tourism met on May 14th. Kristen Blunder, the department head of Dunn County, Chippewa and Eau Claire, gave a good review of the UW extension, which was a good for me, because that was my first introduction to her. I know they cover a lot of stuff with Dunn County staff that they have here in our building. They partnership with the county crop and soil, that they work very well with those guys and stuff, so. We're also looking at the Dunn County website, the Visit Dunn County that Jim Zahns had set up, that we are looking at different options with that, whether we keep it or not. It pretty much does the same one that the county has on their website, so we're looking at different options with that. We had a discussion on when we should have our meetings. We moved it from the second Tuesday to the third Tuesday at same time at 4:30, just for convenience on the committee members. Other than that, the broadband, Dan went through all the challenge process, which is right now the county is not gonna challenge. I mean, they're letting the other, but people take care of that, the businesses and the challenge map is really kind of not what it shows. I mean, there's different things on there that are different buildings that aren't, because he's gonna, as they get that cleaned up, it'll be a lot better, so. That's about all I have, I guess.
Thank you Supervisor Bauer. Supervisor Headland.
Yes, welcome, our, county, treasurer. Glad to have you, finally, shouldn't say finally, but it seems like it's been a long time. On staff and, glad to see you here.
Thank you Supervisor Headland. All right, that's the reports of committees. Our next meeting, I see July 10th, 17th, or 24th. So I'm guessing that technically we should probably have put that as a discussion item, but we would normally be on the 10th as the second Tuesday, but given that the county board meeting will be on the 31st, we could either go the 17th or the 24th, which would be the week before. Does anyone have strong objections to any of those? I would suggest probably the 24th then, because that gives us the most flexibility for if stuff comes up, getting it through here and onto the county board is needed. Okay, seeing no argument, our next meeting is July 24th. And with that, we are adjourned.
Some of them will, I think, yeah. I mean, we've had township people at every meeting. And we had at the meeting where we approved it, we had Bob Cook, who's chair of the County Towns Association, presented us with a survey that he sent out. I think every town on that survey said that they were okay with it